Hey everyone, it's Emily, and I've not been buying a ton of new games to add to my collection these last few months. But after kind of evaluating the games I did end up picking up, I've noticed a pattern that I've been buying a lot of Nintendo Switch 1 games. And I keep wondering, am I buying too many? Now let's back up a bit. The Nintendo Switch is one of my favorite consoles of all time. As you can see back here in my shelves, it makes up a large portion of my entire collection. And I have 4 different spots on my shelves dedicated to my Nintendo Switch collection. But after getting this big old haul of Switch games, mostly at PAX West, but also just here and there when new releases came out, I keep wondering, is this going to fit in the designated spots I have in my shelves? Because when I got these shelves back a couple years ago, I didn't really have any intention of expanding my Switch collection to more than these 4 designated shelf spots. And I think I may be running out of room. So in today's video, I wanted to go over a lot of my recent pickups, which a majority of them are on the Switch 1. No, I do have a PS5 game in here as well, but also kind of lead into a discussion about how many games is too many for a particular console, and kind of go through my little collecting crisis I've been going through these past few weeks. So all these games I've spoiled already to my YouTube channel members, so shout out to you guys, but all these games are ones that I picked up or also played since May of this year, starting with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection. And for those curious, this is the Harpy's Feather Duster card that I got inside. I think this is the one that goes for less, but that's okay. I'm not going to be selling that. But I have never actually played a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game before this collection was in my hands. And I recently beat the Sacred Cards Game Boy Advance game that's in this collection, and I loved it. I actually think I may try to hunt down some of those original, at least GBA games that came with the cart, because they're not super expensive, and there's just something especially about the Sacred Cards that I really adored playing. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very nostalgic IP for me. I grew up with the anime, and I also own various Yu-Gi-Oh! Kotobukiya figures, and ones from Mega House that I love, and I look forward to playing more Yu-Gi-Oh! Games. I don't know if I'll ever get into the card game, because TCGs are a bit of a money pit, but it's made me definitely appreciate the card game itself after watching the anime and playing a version of the card game. I know it's not the official rules that they usually have in these earlier games, but I have a greater appreciation for how the game generally plays now. And then the next game, which is also a new release from this year, is No Sleep for Kaname Date, which is part of the Eye of the Somni Files series, which is one of my favorite series of all time. And this is no exception. This kind of takes place after the first game, but kind of before the second game. And how you kind of describe this, it's also infusing elements from the creators' 999 sort of franchise by incorporating more escape room elements into this puzzle, visual novel, text adventure. I don't know what you classify this game as, but it's an amazing game. I highly recommend it. It comes with the stickers inside that have a little hollow to them. But just the writing in this game is just, I think, top notch. I highly recommend it, even to those who don't like visual novels. Just the writing, the voice acting, everything about this game, amazing. Definitely, you should check it out. And on that note, another, I guess, similar game to Eye of the Somni Files is Emio, the Smiling Man. This is from the Famicom Detective Club franchise. I actually never played the first 2 games that were digital only that I want to say were released a few years ago. Japan, of course, got a physical release, but there's no English on there, so I never actually got around to buying or playing those. But I'm much more curious about them now because I've heard nothing but good things about Emio here as just a nice kind of dark mystery horror visual novel. And it's rated M, which you don't usually see, for Nintendo first party games. But I wanted to grab this before it was too late. I have a feeling this sort of game is not going to see a lot of reprints. So I'm really glad to have this in my collection, and it's kind of probably perfect to play this time of year now that we are entering the spooky season. But after that, I also finally got Unicorn Overlord, which is one that I've been wanting to play for a long time. I love Vanillaware, and when Vanillaware announced they were doing a strategy RPG, I was all for it. And I've heard really good things about the gameplay as well as the characters. And I've been seeing so many Kotobukiya scales coming out of various characters in this. And I actually ordered this last year, but unfortunately it was part of a package that got stolen from my mailroom. So I've been hesitant to buy it again, but here it is. I really want to play this at some point. I don't know when I'm going to fit this in because I have so many games in my backlog, but I really wanted this in a handheld experience because I love games like Fire Emblem and other strategy RPGs in handheld. So that's why I went with the Switch 1 version for this. And then next are games that I got at PAX West this year, mostly from the Serenity Forge booth. So shout out to them. They were running a great sale for a lot of their titles, where they discounted a lot of their semi-new releases to $20 each. So I had to pick them up, including one for A Space for the Unbound. I've heard wonderful things about this game too, like all these games. Basically, I would say if you're into kind of niche narrative games, these are usually pretty highly acclaimed. But this is from, I think, an Indonesian developer that incorporates a lot of Indonesian culture and a lot of just heartfelt stories from the late 90s in here. So I'm really looking forward to playing this. And if you're into physical releases, Serenity Forge does a great job with their packaging, with how it looks inside and some goodies they pack in. So definitely very happy to finally have this. I also picked up the Read Only Memories Narrative Driver, and this is another kind of visual novel. This is sort of a sequel to 2064, Read Only Memories. I still need to pick up a physical copy of that first one that I think I should probably play before this, but this is like a sci-fi visual novel where you are a psychic agent, and it just sounded really fun. Actually, I have a t-shirt of this, but have not yet played this. I need to though. I also picked up for, again, one of their $20 sales was Xiaoyan Sword, Mist Beyond the Mountains. I've been trying to get more into Chinese RPGs because I feel like they're kind of a refreshing take of your typical JRPGs when it comes to kind of the mythology they infuse in a lot of theirs, and just some of the story progressions are a little bit different than, I would say, a lot of traditional JRPGs. And this is a remaster of one of the earliest CRPGs, or Chinese RPGs. It's not like a CRPG where it's D&D at all. But yeah, looking forward to this and also getting more into that subgenre of RPGs. And Serenity Forge were also very kind enough to give me a copy of the new cover release of Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. This is one of the variants that they had at PAX West this year. So they had one of the other three girls, and that's kind of a special back into it. But it's the same as, the regular release. It includes all the goodies inside. And this is a psychological horror visual novel. If you guys are not familiar with this title yet, I highly recommend if you are into some kind of trippy experience. That's short and sweet. They also sent over the Slay the Princess on the Switch to me, including the collector's edition, which I've unboxed on the channel already. But I just wanted to kind of shout out this game, which is another psychological horror visual novel, but in a different way than Doki Doki Literature Club. And one I highly recommend for anyone who likes, again, kind of weird experiences that are narrative driven. So a lot of great ones that I think work really well on the Switch. At PAX West, I also picked up a game from the Limited Run booth that I missed out when it came out, and that is In the Stars in Time. This is another kind of turn-based RPG that I would say got kind of overlooked. What's really interesting is that it has a black and white aesthetic, and I'm just looking forward to hearing more about it. I've heard really good things about it, so looking forward to it. And the last game is not a Switch game, finally, and that is the PS5 version of Beyond Good and Evil. So this is the 20th anniversary edition. I missed out when Limited Run had this on pre-order, but I got this at Video Games Plus when they had it available. Unfortunately, I think it may not be available anymore, but maybe they'll get more copies in. I bought that along with Unicorn Overload from them back in June. And I've always wanted to play the series. So I'm really happy to have it physically and give it a try when I have time, of course. But yeah, that's it for the pickups. As you notice, that is an additional 10 Switch games I need to find room on my shelf for. I think I might have room if I move things around back there. And this kind of leads into my discussion about how many games are too many for the console, specifically for a Switch 1. And the Switch has been a console I've really enjoyed collecting for over the past few years. And it has a wonderful library, and I really like how a lot of the games do not require an internet connection in order to play them. And I've made countless videos about this, about how you can do some research if you wanted to see kind of what cart number you have or what revision number you have on certain releases. And there's a lot of great resources available online to see how well these games play without patching them at all. So definitely encourage you to check those videos out. I'll have them linked in the description here if that also interests you. But if it doesn't interest you, it's totally fine. I know people collect for different reasons. One of the reasons why I collect is I love to have physical representations of my favorite games, and also to, again, not have to rely on the internet in order to play them in the future. And ownership, I think, is a big reason why I think buying console games is very valuable, still to this day. But back to my Nintendo Switch collection and sort of mini crisis I've been having. There's been just so many titles that have come out on the Switch that I keep wondering, did I really need to buy this on the Switch? Would it have been better to maybe buy it on the PS5, for example, or maybe even the PS4? Or did I really even need a physical version of this game? Like maybe I could have just enjoyed it as a one-off digitally on my PC, which I probably would have bought maybe cheaper than the physical copy and not have to worry too much about my shelf space back there. But yeah, this has been something that I've been thinking about the past few weeks about how I want to go about my Switch collecting moving forward, because we are soon going to be transitioning to the Switch 2. There's a lot of games that are now probably going to be exclusive to the Switch 2, but there's also a lot of games that will be physically on a Switch 1 version of the game. For example, one of the first games I shared in this pile, No Sleep for Konami Date. This came out physically on the Switch 1, but there's also a Switch 2 version that was unfortunately a game key card. How many of those games would I go back and buy the Switch 1 version? Or would I just go digitally on the Nintendo Switch 2 eventually? Because I just never see myself buying a game key card, to be honest. That's just kind of against why I like collecting for multiple reasons. And at that point, I would just rather buy it digitally if I really wanted to play the game. And in the case of many third-party publishers, sometimes it just comes on the PS5 without some sort of upgrade path that I need to worry about. So these are things that I've been trying to think about and what sort of limits I want to put on my Switch collection, because I never really went out and decided to collect because I wanted a full set of games, or I also didn't really want to have a ton of games, if you will. I know behind me, it's all relative what a ton of games means. To many people, maybe that's a ton of games that I have behind on my shelves there. But for me, again, I think a cap of maybe 200 games is reasonable, which is the amount that would fit on the 4 designated spots I have for my current Switch 1 collection. I don't really see myself going to my next lower shelf, which right now is kind of where I'm keeping or have an idea of where my Switch 2 collection will be. And I'm not that confident that my Switch 2 collection in the next few years will actually take up the entire space on that designated shelf. Just because I could see myself as someone who mostly buys third-party developer games, buying those on PS5 or just going for it digitally on PC, since I've now taken to PC gaming, especially when it comes to streaming and things like that. But when it comes to Switch 2, I just think I'm going to have a very small collection of physical games that I love and will have for hopefully a long time, including the upcoming Fire Emblem game that Fortune's Weave that I'm really looking forward to. It's probably going to be one of the games that convinces me to buy a Switch 2 eventually. But also a lot of the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games I am very interested in that have been coming out. Right now I have one, the Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma game that I have on the Switch 2 Edition that you could still play on your Switch 1, which I think is great. And when I want to eventually buy a Switch 2, I could also get the upgrade path already on the cart there and have that available there. And I'm thinking probably my next Switch 2 purchase is going to be Hades 2, which is going to be thankfully fully on the cart on a Switch 2 edition. So I could play that also on my Switch OLED that I have now, or wait to eventually play it on the Switch 2 system whenever I get that. So these are things that I've been thinking about, and I think if I want to keep my collection at around 200 games, I'm going to have to start purging my games, which I've already started doing actually. If you've looked at my various collection videos over the years, you'll notice there are some titles that kind of disappear because I maybe have sold them or traded them in at some point. And I've done that recently with a lot of games, and I could see myself continuing to do that with more games. And probably, kind of reducing what games that I just don't think I need necessarily physically anymore on the Switch for one reason or the other. Whether it's because there's going to be a better version coming out at some point on another system, or they're just games I just no longer have an interest owning physically for whatever reason. So these are things I've been thinking about. I'd love to hear what you guys think when it comes to how many games are too many games for a certain console collection, whether it's the Switch 1 or any console that you may be collecting for. Do you try to set parameters of your collection? Otherwise, I feel like if I don't set parameters, my collection starts to get a little unruly, and I tend to have too many filler games that I don't think I need to own physically, if you will. And it's also, I think, a good way to kind of curate your collection to games that you will actually play, because all the games that I buy, I have the intention of playing one way or the other. And for me, that is something that I value when it comes to collecting. So I'd love to hear what you guys think and what games you're looking forward to, maybe that adding to your collection, and whether or not they fit into your collecting parameters. But I wanted to give a big thank you to my channel members here on YouTube for supporting the channel in that way and supporting my streaming as well as my long form videos. And a big shout out to my Orbit Architect level members. Dr. God, thank you so much for your support. I know I've been asking you guys a lot of questions, but again, I just am curious. How many games is too many games, especially on the Switch 1? I know a lot of people don't like the idea of trading in or selling games because of potential regrets they may have in doing so. I know a lot of us were burned in our younger years when we sold games to GameStop back in the day, myself included. But I think I'm not going to let that, hold me back for curating my collection and the way I kind of envision my collection to be like. And to grow with me in years to come. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until my next one, bye guys.